everybody. Welcome to Shannon Confidential. Look down the red subscribe. Click it. Thank you. Hey, everybody, welcome to Shannon Confidential. I am Shannon, your host, and Shannon Confidential is a podcast about life, love, and everything in between. And today's everything in between is a really cool guy. I am so looking forward to getting into the interview with him. When we met on the intro call, I knew he was incredible, watching all of his background footage, but I didn't want to ask too many questions because I like the conversation to be authentic, and I can't wait to dive in. And it's author Matt Sweetwood. He has the #1 selling book, Leader of the Pack. We're going to go into the whole story behind the book. I can't wait to get into it. He is a #1 selling author. He is a professional speaker. He's a nature photographer. He's a dad of 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's a lot. I have 2, and I can't imagine 5. He is a coach. There's everything. He entrepreneur. He's so big into photography. Wait till you hear his background story. He's really, really going to be so much fun to talk to. Can't wait for you guys to meet him. Everybody, here we are with Matt Sweetwood. I am so excited. We're going to get into this. Like I said, he's a dad of 5, a best-selling author, a professional speaker, a photographer, coach. He does so much, and he's done companies, and he's so into photography, and just his history in photography is incredible. So I am just going to let Matt roll with it. Matt, welcome to Shannon Confidential.
Can we tell? If this is confidential, I don't know. Can we tell anybody? It's just between us.
Just between us.
I'm so glad to be here with you. That's a good-looking guy you got behind you up there. I really like that.
Yeah, it's good. It's good.
You know, I'll sort of start with that. You know, that book was it was not really my intention to write a book, but just life events kind of put me in a place where I had one of these moments where I said to myself, you need to write a book. This couldn't have happened to you if it wasn't intent for you to write a book. And I will tell you the best part about writing a book, and you know, for any of your audience out there that's ever written a book, you probably know this, is that it's more, you do better financially if you kind of go work for Starbucks. Nothing against working for Starbucks, but if you calculate the amount of hours you put in and the return, this of course is not true for very famous people who get, you know, big book advances and stuff like that. But for us entrepreneurs and workers out there, you know, sometimes we get book advances, but still you put in so many hours into the book. And in my case, I wrote the book about halfway and then, you know, had a discussion with a few people who I trust on this, and they made me realize that I'd written garbage. So I threw that. What do you do with garbage? You throw that garbage out and you start all over again. And the book's been really successful. I have, you know, 145-star reviews on Amazon. It was a bestseller. But really the most rewarding part about the book is that I literally get someone write me every week and they tell me the book changed their life.
Wow.
The story in there, it helped them in some way because it deals with a lot of very heavy topics. The book is, you know, Leader of the Pack. For those not looking, can hear Leader of the Pack is basically a mea culpa of all the stupid things I've done and how I got out of them. And
well, you know, my book would be an encyclopedia.
Okay, maybe I only have one section, right? But no. It's not that I made that many mistakes. They're just huge. Right? They're just huge mistakes. And that's how you end up a single father of 5 little kids and have to raise them on your own and fight a Supreme Court case and end up with a crazy business and that goes up and down and all of that stuff. So
wow. Okay. So okay, now you have us all enticed. I know I'm going to be getting it. Right. You want to give us a little insight to what you just said? That sounds pretty intense. Supreme Court.
Yeah, well, I don't usually lead with that because it's always a sensitive topic, but I ended up in a fight with the state of New Jersey. It was a Second Amendment fight. They basically decided to use me as a test case.
Really?
And they tried to take my Second Amendment rights away from me. It took me several years, a lot of my own money. I learned a lot about what happens when the state comes after you. This is something that people do not realize, is that when the state comes after you, whether they're right or wrong, they have unlimited resources. And if they lose, you know, they're embarrassed. They were really embarrassed in my case, but embarrassed, but they don't, okay, they just move on. They collect their paychecks and they move on and so on. And they come after you with everything, and they have no scruples, nothing, no morals, no scruples. They just do anything that they want to do to you.
Well, first of all, they're going to go after your Second Amendment. They've got no scruples just for doing that, let alone what they're going to do beyond that.
That's right. So what happened was they wouldn't give me back my firearms ID card. Basically, it came down to my first wife accused me of something. We came to an agreement, and they said, okay, we're going to hold your firearms ID card. I eventually prevailed. I ended up with full custody of my 5 children. The case is over, and then I said, give me back my card. And they're like, nope, we're not giving you back your card. And they wanted to test a new, and ironically, I didn't realize until most of the way through the litigation as to why they chose me. They chose me because I was clean, right? So if they could win against me, they can win against everybody. I didn't have a traffic ticket to my name. I didn't have anything. There's nothing wrong. I didn't do anything wrong. Never had anything. I could have priests and rabbis get up and tell what a great guy I am. Even, I mean, they lie, but nevertheless, they tell what a great guy I am. You know, I have 5 kids I'm raising on my own. I have a business with 100 and something people. Everybody knows me. So they actually used me, and they figured that they could wear me down. Like they would go court shopping. They would walk into a court, say, you need to go into this court. Then they'd show up in the court and say, this isn't the right court. They would say to the judge, no, it needs to be. So they kept churning my legal fees, trying to find a court that was good for them.
They were just trying to bleed you dry.
And then ironically, I ended up in one of the most liberal Supreme Courts in the entire country, in the state of New Jersey Supreme Court. And they didn't view it as a Second Amendment case, even though it kind of was. They viewed it as a men's right, victims' rights case, because the state denied me due process. They did all sorts of really bad things to me, and they just threw the book at them. And the state brings in like the attorney general of the state and a whole lot. They were trying to toughen the gun laws, and they knew the gun law was over the line, and they wanted to just use me. But
that just makes me so mad, because I am a very proud firearm carrier. I love them. I love all of them. And if someone ever tried to take them away, they wouldn't get very far. And I'll say that publicly. You're not getting very far.
Well, I'm with you. I mean, that's what, people in the politically divisive country we're in right now, if you're in a red state, and I moved from a very, very blue area to, a pretty red area, did that deliberately. We can get into that too, because we can talk about, as a red man dating in a blue area, we can talk about all of the things that go on around that. But I think that a lot of people feel like we do. If you think you're going to take the guns, come and get them. Is the slogan. And I think that in today's world, the policies that are being driven by the coast, the coastal cities, the people in the middle of the country, the flyover country that people don't seem to care about, we care about, but don't seem to care about. I don't think are going for any of this, and I think that we're very, very close. Unfortunately, I don't mean to go off this, because this is not a politics.
It's okay.
This shouldn't
it's a
be
conversation.
a politics. So I think that there will be a revolt, and there is one really going on right now.
There is.
Right. That's why. That's how Trump got elected. That's why when he goes and speaks, 50,000 people show up, because, that's sort of the first steps of the revolution. Trump won't finish the revolution, I don't think, but other people will, and they just can't. Americans just not going to stand for this. I mean, look, we're sitting here, right? We have real lives, real jobs. We're not taking this.
No, we may not be the squeaky wheel, but I believe we have more numbers. And I think that's
we definitely have more numbers. And, we're the kind of people that really just want to go to work and have our families and live our lives.
You see right and wrong, and you see stupidity, and you can't make every duck an eagle. But there's a whole section of the world here that just can't get out of their own way.
Yeah, and I think that that's a result of, well, we're really going in a funny place, but I think that's a result of some morality leaving society, right? And if one could argue that is the plot of Marxism, it's the plot of progressivism, which is really to change the religion of the people from whatever it is, Christianity or Judaism or Buddhism or whatever it is, to the religion of the government. So you have to rely on the government. And that's really what it's about. And when you take morality out, people start fighting with each other. People start doing very bad things to each other. I mean, I don't know if you've noticed this, but I mean, I am a middle-aged white male. And
I didn't get that when I first saw you. I didn't get that.
No, you didn't guess it. You didn't guess it. Didn't guess it. Yeah, I know. It's my youthful appearance that fools everybody. And I face, and I'm not complaining. I'm not saying this, I don't care. I can handle myself. But I face a lot of hostility. I had it happen to me in the hot tub. Yes, like we were in my building. There's a pool
I have
and
to
a
hear
hot
this
tub
one.
in Florida, right? So I'm in there, and some guy's playing his radio too. I just asked him very nice. I said, he was playing it so loud I couldn't talk to the person that I was with, and he started screaming at me. And I was with a woman, she was a friend of mine in the pool, and he made a remark about her, which was racial in nature, but it was reverse. And I just find that the hostility level is just like, you almost feel like people have been authorized now to be uncivil to each other. It's okay.
We all need to be civil, all of us. And I just don't get it. I don't get it. It's not hard to be nice. You actually take more energy to be mean. Just be nice. Just get along. You don't even have to like everybody. Just be respectful.
I didn't expect, excuse me, sir, would you mind, could you just turn it down just a little bit, to result in a almost violent outburst. Of course, when he said that about the person that I was with, it didn't go well for him. The end result, I'll just get to the end of the story. He apologized to her very nicely and left the hot tub, because me and him had sort of a, man-to-man kind of discussion. And he realized that I was able to convince him using logic and reason that he was wrong. In any event, so I just find that this lack of civility that exists, I mean, it's all deliberate in my mind. It's all deliberate. It's trying to turn people against each other, men against women, white against black, Jews against this person against you. It's just very bad, very terrible, and we need to turn it around or there's going to be no return. And I think COVID ended up exacerbating that, right? People locked down, people unhappy, people lonely. I always think about this because I do a lot of coaching, and I've coached a lot of people. I've coached people through divorce. I've coached CEOs. And I do it now actually sort of as my give back. It sort of relates to my book, right? People read my book and they ask me to coach them. So, and I do that. And I find that people just, what's the right way to put it? People are just so lonely and they get stuck. COVID stuck a lot of people with people they don't want to be with full time. People are afraid. They've been made to live in fear. They're afraid of getting COVID. They're afraid of the vaccine. They're afraid of whatever. And it's created such a difficult environment in the world. I just hope that we can heal and recover. I really do. And I just don't see our current government. I don't see them trying to do anything to heal, certainly not on the federal level. Some of the state governments do better, of course, but Florida. And I think that people have lost their way.
Yeah. Yeah. Fear does a terrible, terrible, terrible thing to the human mind. And that's a whole nother show. But there's a lot of control that can be done using just fear. And that's what's done that and built that fireball of fear, that then anger and hatred and animosity, and you're different and I'm better than you, but you're worse. All of that comes from that buildup of the fear. And it's a terrible thing. It's a mind killer.
Right. Obviously we're talking, from a position of conservative thought. And I think a lot of that centers around from being told, and this started, a couple administrations ago that you have a grievance. And if you have a grievance because of your skin color or your race or your sex or whatever, then you're entitled to have a grievance. And therefore you can be angry at people and not take responsibility for yourself. And for me, that's such a bad path, right? People need to be responsible for themselves. If you follow any scripture, any religion, it's in the heart of Judaism. You know, when you turn 13, you are responsible for all of your actions and what happens. You know, we all have journeys, right? I'm sure if I sat down with you, and even though you're sitting there looking like the world is great, you know, all well put together, I'm sure you have like a really, you know, everybody has their difficulties.
Oh, I have good days, bad days, ups and downs. I've cried myself to sleep, but I've cracked up hysterically. Yeah, life is life. It doesn't matter where you live or what you look like, what sex you are, what race you are, how much money you make. We all deal with it.
You know, I saw a very interesting survey, you know, a poll that, you know, it's really this Martin Luther King saying that applied to a poll, which is people ultimately do not, Americans are not racist. We're not racist people. I mean, of course, there's racists out there. There's racists everywhere. Every country has them. But as a society, we're not. Most people judge other people by their character.
Yes. And
if
that's
you work
why
hard,
so
I don't care. You know as well as I do. If someone comes in, you don't care. Black, white, green, yellow, orange, purple, tall, short, it doesn't matter. If they work hard, if they're talented, if they're kind, if they're all of these things, you judge them well, and you judge them poorly if they don't behave right. And so this concept that we judge people by some external means is like the lowest common denominator. And I just don't think this country was founded on that, this homogeneous, you know, mix of people that are all governed. And I think, you know, to steer even another direction, I think one of the most dangerous things the government is doing right now is unequal application of the law. I mean, that's the worst. Once you do that, your society completely falls apart. In other words, we're going to apply one set of law to white middle-aged guys, and we're going to apply another set of law. So if a white middle-aged guy commits a crime, this is what's going to happen to him. And if a young African-American man commits a crime, we're going to do something different to him. Now, people would argue it's worse the other way, but nevertheless, you have to have the equal application of the law. You just have to.
You have to. And what people don't realize is maybe in one aspect, you're on the benefit side of an unfair application. But I will assure you, I don't care if that's law, go to jail, censorship, whatever it is, at some point, you will find yourself on the other side. And then that's when it will really matter. So let's just not get there and just be fair and equal.
You know, I use my Twitter pretty effectively. And until recently, and, you know, maybe we'll get into this sort of on the back half of the conversation a little bit. You know, I've run companies my whole life. And when I was running my company in New Jersey, I was very careful about my social media to really just focus on business, because my feeling was, you know, no matter what you say, you sort of aggravate or piss off half your audience. So I kind of kept away from that. And now I'm actually running 3 startups right now. And quite frankly, I believe the situation is drastic enough to where I don't really hold my tongue anymore. And I kind of speak my mind out there. And I have a pretty heavy Twitter. I've got, you know, 170,000 followers. I've been a social media influencer from the beginning and that kind of thing. And there was a thread that it wasn't my thread. It was something I read out there. It was a viral thread from a couple of days ago. And it was an officer, a naval officer, complaining about, he was making the statement that he would have to give up his 15-year career because he didn't want to take the vaccine. He has a religious objection because it's made from, you know, fetal tissue, you know, it was used in the thing. And he goes, look, I don't want to take it. The military has a 0.000. We're all in shape. We're all young people. We're all this kind of thing. There's no reason they're going to mandate this. And I'm going to be stuck between dishonorable discharge. And he went on, and it was such an emotional thread where he talked about his dedication to the country and how unfair this is and the whole bit. But okay, but what was interesting to me was people's reaction to it. Okay, because I retweeted it on my timeline, so it was reaction from people that I know. A man that I know wrote on it. He goes, "This is good." He goes, because, and he points out this isolated incident where a few servicemen, something happened, right? But it's a very isolated incident, and he used that. It's a straw man argument, and he used that argument. And I responded to him. I said, "Did you read his thread?" Because it's clear, and this is really at the heart of the matter, is that he didn't even read the thread. He's so brainwashed into whatever his idea is. He just saw the guy's like first post and then just immediately responded with this stuff.
People don't read. They don't.
And then I went back to him.
Really
said,
look
read
into
the thread.
It.
Read the thread.
Yeah.
You want to discuss what he said? Let's discuss what we said. We can discuss the facts. Ran away. Then there was another person who responded, and this to me was an extremely revealing response. They responded, "Well, that's what you get when you work for the government." And I responded to her. I said to her, "You're confused. The soldier doesn't work for the government. He works for the people. And the people have constitutional rights." And then I pointed out the point that you're making. You know, it's very good when the government applies laws that to people you don't like or don't care about. Right? But the second you let them do that, you let them do things, that's it. That's the slippery slope. They're eventually coming for you.
Yeah.
Right? You can ask any person who knows the history of the Holocaust. They came for this. It was like the camel in the tent. They did a little of this and a little more and a little more and a little more and a little more before they killed everybody. Right? They didn't just kill the Jews. They killed everybody. They killed 3 times as many people. Right? They killed gypsies. They killed gay people. They killed all sorts of people in millions and millions of people because nobody cared. And this is exactly what's
it's not
going on
affecting me. It's not me, so I'm okay with it.
Yeah, no, it's even worse. It could be like they're a Trump supporter. Who cares?
Yeah, we're all human beings.
They don't realize that even if you hate the other person.
Yeah, you know, if you love Biden, all right, I don't care. You love Biden, that's fine. Whatever. We're different. We see things differently. But I wouldn't want any harm to happen to you. And if people were attacking you, I would save you because you're a human being, because I'm a person. I just don't get the hatred just because it's a different view or a different color. Well, I just don't get it.
The hatred comes from, number one, you have to realize that people who are progressive in their mindset, right? They tend to not be religious. They tend to not follow sort of that Judeo-Christian morality, which says, love thy brother, you know, all of those kinds of things. So they're not guided by that. But so therefore, what are they guided by? They're guided by what the government tells them, what they read on TV or see on TV or read on their Facebook. And they then apply that without any moral standard. And then there's just deliberate brainwashing going on. So they hear, you know, I'm sure you've seen these segments where, and the left does this better than anybody. They're actually amazing at it, where they create a phrase.
Oh, and repeat.
Right? And you've seen these videos, I'm sure. I know where you're watching. You see these videos where every single person, from Joe Biden to Nancy Pelosi, to the schmucks on CNN, to the MSNBC guys, to the headlines in the New York Times, to the Washington Post, to the LA Times, and they all repeat exactly the same phrase, right? And I always say to somebody, doesn't that bother you?
Yeah.
And their answer is,
come up with something original. If you
no. Their answer is because that's true. It's true. That's why they're all using exactly the same language. Like the famous, the insurrection. It's an insurrection. It's an insurrection. It's like you could probably play a clip like 97 million times. They're great at it. And people just like robots. They kind of just.
Yeah. Oh, they just keep hearing it.
Yeah. They just keep hearing it.
Yeah.
And then if you sort of bring out any fact, their eyes glaze over, they get angry, or they just run away.
Yeah, because again, no one reads, no one researches, no one really looks into it.
You know, I always say,
on the surface is all what they want you to read, what they want you to hear. You've got to.
I have a funny, because I don't want to get into January 6th discussion, because this is just nonsense. We shouldn't even give it airtime. But somebody goes to me, they go to me, it was an armed insurrection. So I very simply said, who was armed? And that's what you hear. You hear silence. I'm just saying, name one person who was there who was armed. Name one, just one. Show me, send me a link, do something. Show me one person who was in that building who was armed. Name one. They run away every single time. And it doesn't bother them that they've been lied to. And then when they hear this is why you know it's brainwashing. Like, let's say we're friends, okay? And you find out that I have lied to you, right? About something big. In other words, I tell you a story. You then go, oh my gosh, Matt told me this. I'm going to go and I'm going to tell everybody. And you go and you tell everybody for weeks, months. And then you find out that I completely lied to you. I'm going to guess that we're probably not going to be very good friends anymore.
I'd be mad.
You're going to be mad at me. But that's not what happens. And this is why you know they're brainwashed, is that they are lied to repeatedly. They then know that they've been lied to. You know, we can go into all the political lies that have been told about Trump and about Russia collusion and about Ukraine and about also even about policy, right? Like, they lie directly about policy that they could just go read themselves. They know they've been lied to, but yet they go back to the same source for more. And that's how you know people are brainwashed. Nobody goes back to a source that's dishonest or you've been lied to unless you're drinking the Kool-Aid. And when people are brainwashed like this, it makes you understand how things like Nazi Germany happened. You know, that's a question that gets asked, right? How did a government convince the people, right? Because Hitler did not personally kill all those people. His generals didn't personally. They had to get a lot of people to go along with this, a lot. Millions of people to go along with this. How did they do that? Don't those millions, I'm not going to go kill another human being, right? But that's because they brainwash them. They work them into this, and you're actually seeing that here. You're seeing the beginnings of this hatred building up against classes of our society to create this class warfare. Because first what they do is they tell you you have privilege, then they tell you you're bad, you're born this way, then they tell you you need to be eliminated or you need to be put aside, and then you're less than human, and then you need to be killed. So, and then people get caught up in this craziness and they participate. So I'm sorry, we took this podcast to a very, very dark place.
No, it's a very honest, and the podcast is a conversation, and there's no conversation is wrong as far as I'm concerned.
Fair enough. Right? I just, you know, typically I go on business podcasts and we talk about, you know, how to start up a business, how to work this, how to, you know, do the things that you need to do in a business. But this is much more relevant because there is no business. There is actually no business unless the country is functioning, right?
Yes.
Right?
Absolutely.
What's your tell me what your biggest worry is?
Personally or country-wise?
Either.
That the turn doesn't start to happen. Well, no, okay. Maybe it's just positive thinking. I do believe, again, I say that there's power in numbers and they're not necessarily the loudest people. I do believe as crazy as it's getting, I've seen a turn for the better. And that doesn't necessarily, and when I say the better, I'm going to be very clear. That doesn't necessarily mean in my direction or the way I feel, because I'm not always right, but a turn where I'm starting to see people who have had very, 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 very strong views one way are going, wait a second, I might have been wrong. I might have to rethink that. And even just that subtleness of, hold on, even I don't think this is going well, means that there's a shift. So I'm just really, really appreciating that shift. And it's more and more people every day that I would never have thought would say things in a positive way towards, you know, the way I would feel, because it was very different. Having that little thought to come back. So I just believe that people are good and they want what's right and they want what's best for everybody and for each other. And I'm just really, really hopeful that the shift I'm seeing starts to ripple through and it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And we all come to a center of understanding. I don't care, lean this way, lean that, just a center of understanding. So that's, I don't know if it's a worry, but that's my wish.
Yeah, I hope you're right. I really hope that's right. I can't say that I've seen that, but I also now, like I said, I'm sort of out there in the heavy fighting circles where if you say something positive along our line of thinking, you get attacked, you know, in a pretty vicious kind of way. So I'm really glad to hear that. I would really like that to be the case, that people snap out of it and start to realize the danger that's out there and what's going on, you know.
Yeah.
I think one of the biggest things, one of the hardest things for me to understand, and, you know, obviously the biggest news story of the past year and a half or whatever has been COVID. I just don't understand how people don't hold the Chinese government responsible. I don't know how they even can think that it's anything else, you know. And I will tell you, I had people, I literally said from day one, I was one of those people, literally when it happened, I said, this is a deliberately manufactured bioweapon that was released. It's obvious. How do I know that? Follow the money. Who benefited from it? Who did not benefit from it? Who wanted Trump gone? Who didn't want Trump gone? I said, it's obvious. It's obvious that it is. I mean, you can imagine, from the social media companies to, so now we all know that everything I just said is true. The only thing we can't prove 100%, but we know it, is that it was man-made, okay? We know that it came from the lab. We know that it escaped from the lab. We know that they let it spread. We know that they bought up all the PPP in advance. We know they destroyed information. We know that they made people disappear who we're talking about. Those are all like completely verifiable facts.
That's even mainstream media is saying
right.
that.
The only fact that, I mean, I completely believe it, but the only fact that I don't know if we can totally prove is whether it's actually man-made. But I think there's enough circumstantial evidence, a massive amount of circumstantial evidence that indicates to that. So here you have a country, right? And I want to distinguish, right, so we don't get in trouble. This is not about the Chinese people, right? This is not about it at all. This is about a brutal regime that brutalizes its own people. It commits human rights violations all over the world, whose goal is world domination and the destruction of the rest of the free world, okay? I don't understand how people don't understand they declared war on us. This is a biological war. It is the first step in a bigger war. We need to be at war with them. I'm not saying war by sending in ground troops and a war by, this needs to be the biggest economic war in the history of our country. We need to crush them, and we need to band together. Black people, white people, green people, tall people, bald people. We all need to come together, and we need to fight this enemy that's trying to destroy us. But unfortunately, a lot of these immoral people are in bed with them and are just looking out. There's no patriotism, right? So when you shill for the CCP, you're basically exhibiting, I don't want to call it treasonous, that's too strong, but you're just basically so selfish. You don't care about your country. You don't care about winning the great. So I don't understand how people at this point aren't like, we demand payment, we demand to hold the CCP accountable. This to me is, I think, one of the hardest things for me to understand. And there are people that, like I said, flamed me and flamed other people because we were saying, no, it came from this, why you're racist, you're calling it the China virus. Okay, so now we all know this is true. So now what? First of all, tell me you're sorry. I want to hear I want you to tell me you're sorry. I want to hear it, eye to eye. Come on, very nicely. Yeah. Sorry. Here. No, you don't get that. They just ignore it like it didn't happen, like it's okay. This is not okay. They killed millions of people. They sucked trillions of dollars of value out of the world. There will be children, because they've been kept out of school, that will never be okay. They will suffer consequences of this their whole lives. There's people that lost their jobs, lost their homes. There's people that will suffer depression, alcoholism, domestic violence. Just all result of what they did.
Yeah, and there was people who were already suffering and now have just catapulted over the edge. And now we have a whole new people suffering that have been introduced to that because of the circumstances.
That's right. It's good. It's a good day for psychiatrists. If you're a young person and you're going to go to school, psychiatry might be a really good field, because it's going to be decades result as a consequence of what they did. So where is our upset? They're an enemy. They're our enemy. In the meanwhile, you have the major news networks talking about China like it's the golden land, like it's a wonderful place and defends. I don't understand. They don't understand that it's coming for them. That's what people don't understand, is that it's okay when it's your enemy, or if it's okay when it benefits you financially. But the reason our rules and our system has worked so well for so long is that we protect everybody, and it's coming for them. It's only a matter of time. Unless we can turn it around, unless we can turn this around, it is coming for them. So we're in a very difficult spot. It's very painful to watch.
Yeah.
I had to leave. I spent most of my life in New Jersey. Right. Okay. I'm a Jersey guy, and raised my kids in New Jersey, went to college in New Jersey, ran businesses in New Jersey. I thought that was the place, for better or worse, I was going to end up, and I just couldn't take it anymore. Couldn't take it. Moved to New York City, and for the 4 years I was in New York City, I watched I looked out my window, Hudson River on the left, I could look out to the right and see actually Wall Street. I can see the end of the street and Trinity Church and the Freedom Tower Street. I had this amazing apartment in Manhattan, and I literally watched the quality of life deteriorate day by day by day. And this is before COVID. Yeah. And I left the city long, a good year before COVID happened. And
lucky.
I mean, I look really smart for doing that. One of the few smart things I've done in my life, but I actually had said to somebody at that time, they asked me why you're leaving. I said, because there's going to be a big terrorist attack on New York City. It's a question of, it's just a matter of time. It's not if, just a question of when. I didn't know that was going to come in the form of a unleashed bioweapon, but ultimately that bioweapon became the excuse for the city to be ruined. And I don't know if you've ever been to New York City or spent time there. It's a majestic city. Arguably arguably the best city in the country.
Yeah, so, I loved it. I would go with my significant other when he had business. And, I did, short little trips when I was younger. I have some family on Long Island, and my son used to play lacrosse, so there would be tournaments out in that area. But I have to tell you, walking around New York City, it was an incredible amount of diversity, but everybody it was such an energetic vibe. There was no one disliked anybody. We all just melted together downtown or whatever, it was beautiful.
I mean, you'd get on a subway car and it would just literally be the United, and nobody cared.
No one cared. We were all just there having a great time.
And I loved riding the subway. And actually the deterioration of the subway was one of the 5 main reasons why I had to leave New York. One of the great things about New York is I could literally walk out of my apartment, and I had literally every train down there. I had the 1, the 2, for those New Yorkers out there that know this. I had the 1, the 2, the 3, the 4, the 6. I can literally, the 5, I could get on any of those trains within less than a 5-minute walk, which meant I had the whole city open to me. And the subways became unbearable. Breaking down, never on time, the homeless people encamping on the subways, the dirt, the filth, the danger. And I think one of the final things was I almost got into a fight on the subway. I was standing there with my significant other, and there was a ugly scene on the train, and a guy, he kicked me he didn't mean to do it, but he was doing something bad on the train. He kicked me. This is what you're dealing with. I mean, it's just crazy. Everybody smoking dope on the streets. You can't walk down a street without, okay, this is not the worst crime, but we know all the subsequent damage that does. And it's just uncomfortable, right? Yeah. There's construction scaffolding everywhere in the city. They cut the Uber licenses, so it was hard to get an Uber. They raised the minimum wage, so restaurants couldn't have enough staff, or they let staff go. They cut quality. They raised prices. I can go on and on and on and on. The police got so mad at the mayor. See, this is something you don't know unless you live there. But this is before this current movement. In de Blasio's first term in New York, he shunned the police. He did something really bad, and 2 police were ambushed and executed in their car.
I saw that. That was
horrible.
And
the police felt it was a result of his language and things that he said. When he went to the funeral, they all turned their backs on him. This was a very poignant moment. You know, the first time I've ever seen anything like that, where the police physically turned their back. And from that moment on, they stopped policing the city in an effective way. I'm not saying the police were not doing their job, but they stopped policing it like they did beforehand. And you watched, as a result of that, the quality of life deteriorate. So I just had enough. I had enough, yeah. And I moved to Florida before everybody else.
Yeah, no, I've been in Florida my whole life, thank God. Right. But I have to tell you, even every now and then we'll look at each other and be like, you know, cave life looks really good right now.
Yeah. You know, it's funny. I live in Miami. I'm in a high rise in Miami. And COVID taught me, and what's going on right now, I actually just recently bought a home. I'm fixing it up, and I'm going to be in a gated community on the ground, which I think I prefer at this point. I think, you know, we're essentially assuming a defensible position. It's a luxury cave, let's put it that way, right?
Well, I'm like literally cave.
Right, yeah. You know, well, you know, a lot of New Yorkers now, right, have left New York and they've headed out into the wild and stuff like that. And an amazing tweet I read the other day, and I think it's one of the most appropriate things I've read, which says something to the effect that having real privilege is having enough money to escape the city that your politics ruined.
That should be on a Hallmark card.
That should be a Hallmark card. That's like, I could not possibly say it, because this is what we, it's funny. I should have, if I had known. I have a t-shirt that says, "Don't New York my Florida." Okay. Right. Because all of us New Yorkers are coming down here, and you just hope that they don't instill the same politics down here, because, you know.
Well, yeah, you can't, you're leaving something that you did not like. You can't then come here and do the same thing, expect anything different. Isn't that like the definition of crazy?
It's cognitive dissonance.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
It's not going to be any different doing the same thing just because you're closer to the ocean.
Right. Well, they do, because they don't believe. This is sort of, I think this is at the heart of what we talked about before, which is a little bit of the brainwashing that goes on. So, you know, when you're in Florida, I'm in Miami, right? So you're in Miami, you get a lot of New Yorkers come down here. And
I'm in Fort Lauderdale, so yeah.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So, you know, it's the same thing. So you have what I call whirlpool conversations, conversations, right? And they come down there, and you're just sitting there. Of course, you know, in today's world, politics almost always comes up in some form, shape, or another. And usually because I'm poking them. And I'll be like, "So what do you think of de Blasio?" And they'll be like, "He sucks." And I'll be like, "Oh yeah, so who voted? Who did you vote for? Who voted for him?" So nobody voted for him, right? And you sort of see them like, you know, you voted for him, right? And now you're going to come here, right? I had one guy tell me, we were talking about, he tells this story of how his apartment in New York became worthless. He couldn't live in New York anymore, and he's an uber liberal guy. And I'm trying to get him, because I can tell he's a smart guy, I'm trying to get him to make the connection between those politics and New York City going into the toilet, right? So he comes here and he goes, "Well, you know, I actually moved my citizenship to Florida. So, and I was able to vote in the last election." He goes, "Even though I have an apartment." I go, "Well, why'd you move here? Why don't you just stay in New York?" He couldn't really articulate an answer that didn't embarrass him, right? So then I go, "Who did you vote for governor?" So he told me that he voted for the guy who ran against DeSantis. I go, "What happened to him?" He goes, he puts his head down. He kind of laughs. He goes, "Yeah, he got arrested in a hotel with a male prostitute and crack, you know, like a week after he lost the election." I'm like, so don't you feel bad that he lied to you, that the party put this person up and they basically made a fool of you? You know what his response to me was? He goes, "But DeSantis is a racist."
I am so sick of that term for everybody. People don't.
No. But you understand, I'm talking about his beliefs, who he voted for. I'm pointing out what people he voted for had control over those geographies. People he voted for broke his trust, lied to him, And rather than address that, he pivoted and said, DeSantis is a racist. So I said, okay, let's deal with that. Tell me something that Ron DeSantis has said or done that's racist. Tell me. I'd like to know. I don't want to support a racist. Yeah. Just like I'm telling you, I wouldn't want to support somebody who did all of those things. Tell me something he did. He goes, I know he's a racist.
I mean,
so this is so
that's your logic,
right. So how do you overcome this? And then once again, it's brainwashing. It's just sort of hearing the same thing over and over again, not thinking for themselves, which is ultimately leads, and this is a really good way to sort of bring this full circle, is the human race can only survive successfully if people think for themselves. And God made us like this. God gave us, the only thing that we have free will for is our own decisions and our own morality, and he wants us to think on our own. And if you're willing to allow yourself
all capable.
Well, everybody's capable of making, look, there's a few mentally ill people who can't distinguish between right and wrong, but the vast majority of the people can think for themselves. They can determine between right and wrong. They can react when they're lied to or deceived, just like we talked about before, and they just don't. So I'm looking at him, right? And he's looking at me, this guy, and he knows he's made a fool of himself, but he can't. This is why when you said you feel like this little waffling in people, like I felt a waffling in him. That's why I was talking to him, but he couldn't flip over anywhere, even on the fence. He went right back to the standard dogma.
Deflection.
Right. I know it's deflection, but he didn't necessarily, he meant it. Obviously, you're right. 100% right. He meant it as deflection, but he's a smart guy. He works like in tech, right? Like you would think he's a smart guy. You would think that he would say to himself, uh-oh, that's embarrassing. I just deflected. I need to have a better answer next time. Even if he just doesn't continue there, right? Like I would run back to my room. Right? I'd be like, uh-oh, I just said something stupid. I better figure this out so I don't say it again. But I promise you, he's sitting at a bar. He's out on a date with a girl someplace, and he's saying the same thing over and over and over again, even though he knows it's wrong.
Some people just have a really, really hard time admitting that. And it's not a weakness. Sometimes admitting you made a mistake is the strongest.
He doesn't even have to admit. He doesn't have to come back to me and go, Matt, I thought about the discussion we had in the whirlpool, and I don't need that. But I promise you, he is right now spewing the exact same things over and over and over again. I can guarantee it.
And the only thing I can do is make sure I just keep thinking for myself. They don't change my mind. I just got to keep thinking for myself. I do research. I look into it. I know what I'm saying, and I'm comfortable with that.
You see, that's also because you've steadied your frame of reference and you're working from a place of what's right and wrong. It actually makes a difference to you.
Yeah. And I want the truth. And if the truth isn't what I support, it's still the truth.
Do you think that Nancy Pelosi cares about what's morally right and morally wrong?
No.
Of course not, right? So I just want to use her, and I'm not using this to attack her because this is not that kind of political discussion, but it's not, and I use her because she's a leader over there, right? So that's not the basis, let's just look at her as a human being. She's a human being. God loves her, loves every human being on earth, okay? Let's just look at her as a human being. Her decision-making process is not based on what's morally right or wrong. Her decision-making process has another criteria. And that's what's fundamentally wrong in my mind with people on the left, is because they've lost their morality and they've lost their way. They don't believe they answer to a higher authority. They don't believe that their conduct is subject to any kind of judgment. Their own internal compass. I used the guy, and this turned out to be a discussion in the whirlpool. I don't want you to know that I don't spend that much time in the whirlpool, but I make it like all the rest of my life. That's how you run 3 companies, raise 5 kids on your own, speak, do all of those things that you gave me in that ego boosting intro. How you do this is I always make the most of my time. And I go back to that guy who was playing his radio too loud, right? His radio. I'm dating myself. His whatever he has, right? Is there even a radio anymore? Okay,
his
so
disc player,
right? Whatever, right? His 8-track, right? So he's playing it too loud. Now I can tell you that I never in my life sat anywhere in public and made a noise that was so loud it disrupted somebody else. I never have. I'm just talking in the most general sense. Not in my apartment. The music or the football game is not going to be on too loud at 12 o'clock at night. I'm not going to make noise and not going to drive down the street with my stereo blasting.
You're respectful of your surroundings.
Right. And where does that respect come from? It comes from my upbringing. Thank you, Mom and Dad. It comes from sort of having a moral compass that you do unto others as you want done to you. And when people lose that, and that's what's lost, right? He should never have been doing that. It should, like, I would be mortified to have my radio playing my 70s music, right? Because it would completely embarrass me. But
there's anything wrong with that.
Right, playing Eagles or my Beatles or something like that really loud, okay? Because, you know, I don't know if anybody else wants to enjoy that, right? You know, it's like people, and it goes to people who smoke dope on the street. It's like, okay, you want to smoke dope, go smoke dope, but I don't need to whiff your dope, okay?
I just don't want it to get in my hair, and then I get on the elevator, and people
when it
get on
gets
the
in my
elevator,
hair,
and I smell like I've been like inside a bomb.
You know, when it gets in my hair, you know how long it takes to get it out of this hair? Okay? I just want you to know it took a long time to prepare for this podcast today.
Did you do
I had to get just the shine just right. Okay, so you're right. Exactly. So you know, when people aren't guided by that morality or that sense of what's right and wrong, and back to Ms. Pelosi, she doesn't make decisions on that. This may hurt people. You know, she's a let 'em eat cake kind of gal, right? She doesn't care. People get hurt. People get put in jail. No, they don't care.
If it works for their agenda.
Right. See, now I couldn't do that to somebody because I really feel like God's going to punish me at some point. Like,
yeah, I'm a karma person. Like,
yeah,
no, that's going to come back and bite me.
Right? Karma is a bitch, and you hope you don't marry her. Okay.
Yeah. So I don't even want to be your friend.
That's right. Exactly right. And so, but that's not guiding them. So if you look at, that's really, it's really a good way for us to sort of come full circle on this, because to me, that's the cause of all the problems, is that people will not allow this kind of thing to happen to other people, or do it to other people, or speak non-truths if they actually have a higher sense of morality.
Yeah. I hold myself to a really high standard, and I do that to myself. So I have no problem expecting that of other people. I don't expect anything from anybody that I can't do myself. And I will hold myself to it. I'm not saying I don't have faults, and I don't say I've never made whoppers of mistakes, but I've learned from them.
And if you do something, to hurt somebody else, you know, you try to make good on it. You try not to do it again, or you try not to let it happen. Me, I'm mortified. I try not to be obtrusive in public. I try not to hurt other people, or, you know, bother. You just try to live together. You know, we're all kind of living together. So
yeah,
right?
I definitely try, no doubt. And then when I do, like, maybe I'll do something in public or whatever that's completely unintentional, I am the first person to own it. I will own it every time. I will apologize. I don't care who you are. I don't even care if you don't accept my apology. I'm going to say I'm sorry. That's just who I am. And I wish there was more people who just took accountability and not felt, I wish there was less entitlement and more accountability.
Well, they've been told, like we said, they've been told they're entitled. So once you have a sense of entitlement, you're dealing with people that have no moral or lack of moral compass, and they have a sense of entitlement. It's a very dangerous combination for our society. But I think we should finish like on a good note. And I hope that your waffling comment actually gave me a little bit, like, you know, people that are actually, their eyes are opening, their brains are opening.
I would not say it if it wasn't true. I swear to you.
So I'm going to tell everybody in your audience that they should go out and get my book. I think that they're really going to like it. My book is
I can't wait.
I'm very pleased with how it came out. And like I said, the most rewarding thing for me is that people read it all the time. Leader of the pack, they read it and they tell me how it helped them, it changed their life. Here's what I promise you. If you read it, You're telling me you're being nice to me right now. You probably feel a little sorry for me. If you're being nice to me, you'll say, okay, I'm going to go read it. You'll check out a chapter, see if it's any good. I promise you won't be able to put it down. How
Oh
about
no,
that?
I'm gonna read it. I'm a sponge for this kind of stuff. So if I say I'm gonna do it, I'm gonna do it. And
I'm going to give
you
you,
don't know me that well,
I'm going
but
to get you a
friends
sign.
know
I
me.
have
I
to
know that.
get you a signed copy, of course.
Oh, that would be so spectacular. Thank you.
Of course. Of
Thank
course, it
you.
would be my pleasure. It would be
But
my pleasure.
I do have to ask. I know the whole book, and I do want to ask you about the title. The leader of the pack. Is the pack your kids? Is that a metaphor?
Yeah, the pack is my kids. The pack is my company. The pack is the battles that you fight against. You know, you're in a pack. Yeah, it's about being the leader of a big company and leader of kids kind of at the same time. Actually, it was my oldest daughter came up with the name. I have to say. When I had my book launch party, by the way, what's really funny is that, you know, when you do a book launch party, you have some music and stuff like that. And we decided, you know, and the writer gets to stand up and give a little talk about the book. And we're planning the party, and they're like, well, we have to play the song, The Leader of the Pack. Okay. But the problem is the original version of Leader of the Pack is sung by like a bunch of 17-year-old girls. So having me sort of get up there and to a song sung by a bunch, Leader of the Pack, you know, kind of just didn't work. So we found a version that was sung by a more manly kind of, you know, version, and we sang Leader of the Pack. But yeah.
I have to look for that. I don't think I've heard it.
Yeah, you got to YouTube. I don't even know where it is, but you YouTube like Leader of the Pack. I think there's some, you know, there's some gruffer versions out there. So I don't have a bunch of 17-year-old girls. But the key line is the reader's line of the book is how a single dad of 5 led his business, himself, and his kids from a disaster to success. Right. So that's really what it's about. It's about how I led a business, myself, my kids, from a very low place to success.
That's not just you. 5 kids you brought up with that.
And I'll give you a little advance on the book.
5?
The mother walked out on us when the youngest was 18 months old, and the oldest was 8.
I don't know the circumstances, but I could not imagine. I'm a mom.
I'm telling you,
imagine.
It's in the book. It's a crazy story. It's
Wow,
a crazy story.
Okay.
But here's what I will tell you, is that was the lowest point of my life, the most difficult point of my life. But what happened to me turned me from a boy into a man. And I had some tough decisions to make and some tough things to overcome inside myself, which allowed me to ultimately be successful, you know? And I don't want to spoil the book, but I talk about where my kids are today and so on in there. And I talk about my business and running the business and so on, and how you balance those things. So ironically, one of the things that I speak a lot about, and you know, I give keynotes on lots of subjects from happiness to leadership, success, and all sorts of things, is that interrelationship between the qualities of being a really good leader at work and being a really good leader at home. And it turns out that a lot of those qualities overlap. And when you learn to be good at one, you can apply a lot of those principles in the other. As a matter of fact, one of the most read articles I've ever written is, I wrote it, it was actually featured, where was it featured? It was featured, I wrote for Entrepreneur, it wasn't an Entrepreneur article. It was featured by LinkedIn. LinkedIn featured it like as the best post of the day, which got, you know, crazy amounts of, I wrote it on their Pulse platform. It was, what's the difference between great parenting and great leadership? That was the title of the article. It had gazillion views on it and stuff like that. My conclusion was that the qualities are basically the same, of course.
Yeah. No, I have to tell you, I've talked to different people that have spoken or done things with leadership, and I tell you, leadership isn't what most people think. It's not a title. You're not the top guy or the top woman or the top person. Leadership is a lot about putting your people first, your family first, delegating, knowing people's strength. There's a lot more to leadership than just ruling. And a lot of people don't get that.
Yeah, I think that's exemplified in a social post I made. My 2 biggest social posts when I was running, I ran a company, a photographic company. We were a camera store, a photographic distributor, electronics business. And there was a picture where my daughter had just graduated college, my middle daughter had just graduated college, and she was sitting in my office and she was assembling family photos, like, because we had half digital and half, traditional photos. So she was assembling the traditional ones to scan and digitize and the whole bit. And she was in my office, and I talked about her graduating college and my business. And she was, because we're in the photo business. And I combined these things with the business I was in and raising the kids and everything. And that the reaction to it was just very heartwarming. And the other one, which was a really big one, is we were running, and I was a pretty big man in the photo industry. I got an award, Person of the Year. I did some really cool things in the industry, reinvented some business models and stuff. So I was at one point an important person, at least in my own mind. So there's somebody took a picture of me sweeping the floor. I didn't know what was going on. We were preparing for an event, and I realized like the lobby, the entrance to our big superstore, it just wasn't clean. So I was out there sweeping the floor, right? Wearing a suit and tie, and so someone took a picture and posted it, and that picture just went wild.
Volumes.
Right.
Volumes that it's your character. You cared about that stuff, and that's awesome. Yeah. But I think I might have just lost you.
I don't know. I think it was a Zoom.
There we go.
Zoom,
there we go.
There's a little Zoom hiccup there.
That was weird. Right. Okay, we're back.
Yeah.
So real quick question. You bringing up the photography part of it, and those who know me, I love photography. If I could flip the cameras around, there's just hikes that we've gone on, and South Africa and animals, and there's like, scenes of the world just all around me. And so one of the things I saw was you did a whole thing on cell phone cameras versus regular cameras. And I have a Canon, I have a Nikon. I prefer Nikon, but I do shoot with Canon. And so many people said, oh, if you're going to South Africa, don't worry, just use your cell phone. You'll get the greatest shots. And I saw you did a piece on the cell phone versus camera.
Yep. So for a long time, I was Fox News's photography expert. I would go on and do these segments. That's probably where you saw. So a cell phone, they're pretty amazing today. I've got this Samsung thing. It's got like a crazy good camera in it. This will capture about 80% of the pictures that you actually want to take. Yeah. It just won't capture 20% of them. And when you're in Africa on a safari, about 90% of the pictures will be in that 20%. So if you take this thing, you're making a huge mistake. You're going to spend thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars on the trip, spend a little bit more, and have proper equipment. Canon, Nikon, Sony, Panasonic, it all doesn't matter. By the way, it always comes down to the photographer. It's sort of like going to a chef and telling them that the food is good because the pots are good. Okay?
Point made.
Okay, so I feel pretty confident in my ability to take a pretty good quality shot with any piece of equipment. But when the physics is against you, you're at far distance, the lighting is low, objects are moving fast, and so on, this is just not going to do it. So if you're in Africa, make sure you have a camera with a really good set of lenses. You have memory cards, backup batteries, you do all sorts of stuff. And I've given plenty of lectures on what to do when you do that, but we can leave that for another event. Take your camera.
I love it. I love it. I got to tell you, Matt, you have been a blast. I love the conversation just went the way it was going. I thought you were incredibly interesting. Your book sounds fascinating. I wish I had a whole nother hour to sit here and talk to you.
Maybe we'll do it again.
I would love that. I would love to have you back. I think there's a lot more to Matt Sweetwood, that's for sure.
We're going to talk afterwards. I'm going to get you a copy of my book.
All right.
I got to hear your thoughts. You got to give me a review.
I definitely thank you, Matt. I truly appreciate you being on. I hope everybody's enjoyed listening to you. I, of course, would love your feedback. I will link you up to everything Matt talked about, all of his social media. Make sure you have a link to his book, everything that you heard today. And I'll make sure that you could follow him and he becomes part of your world.
That'd be amazing. Thank you so much for having me on. I thoroughly enjoyed our conversation. I feel like we're friends.
Yeah, thank you. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Style Secrets. And I am really excited for this one. It's Positive Cast. Desiree DaCosta is amazing. She is the one who's handling all of my guest management. If you are podcasting, let me tell you, they help your launch. content, social media, guest booking. That's what I use with her. Website design, podcast production, and strategy. I'm telling you, this girl and her team, they are amazing. I was getting pitched by a couple of different companies that do this. And let me tell you, they all sounded the same. But when Desiree contacted me and tried to offer her help, I thought, okay, you know what? I'm going to pay attention to her because she was the only one that didn't copy and paste the same message everybody else does. She was original, and that's a lot to say in these days. And I want to thank the team that has been working on me. They have been fantastic. Alan, Brianna, Fiona, Janesta, Christian, and Natalia, thank you so much. Desiree DaCosta and her team with Positive Cast, you all rock. Thank you. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Shannon Confidential. Look down, the red subscribe. Click it. Thank you.